Welcome to Cherry Blossom BL Story, where emotions bloom and stories unfold. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's chapter.
We imagine a house that never sleeps, a boy who was never allowed to exist, and a monster who was born the second his mother breathed her last. This isn't just a love story, it's a confession, the kind that ends with one of them already dead inside. Because when you lock something beautiful away long enough, it stops being prey. It becomes a mirror, and the mirror always lies. Welcome to the attic of Maplewood Lane, where the golden sun finally stopped pretending he wasn't the villain. If you're ready for the darkest, most twisted slow burn you'll see all year, drop a like, subscribe, and ring the bell before I drag you into the dark with me. Because once you step in, there is no turning back. I promise you will never look at love the same way again. Chapter 17, Block Party and Pantry claim the neighborhood block party was Kai's idea. He announced it over breakfast one Saturday morning in late summer casual, almost offhand, as though the thought had just occurred to him while stirring coffee. We should go, show face, look normal. Elias paused mid-pour, the orange juice trembling slightly in the glass. Normal. The word felt foreign in this house, where every surface still carried faint echoes of screams and ownership, but he nodded once. Okay. Kai watched him over the rim of his mug, eyes dark, possessive, lingering on the fresh bite mark peeking above the collar of Elias's shirt, where something loose covered the marks. Elias obeyed. By 3 that afternoon, the street outside was transformed. Folding tables draped in checkered cloths, grills smoking with burgers and hot dogs, children shrieking through sprinklers, music drifting from a Bluetooth speaker someone had set on a porch. Neighbors milled in clusters, laughing, drinking from red plastic cups, trading gossip about property taxes and school districts. It looked idyllic, ordinary. Elias stayed close to Kai, at first loose gray sweats hanging low on his narrow hips, an oversized navy hoodie zipped to the throat, sleeves tucked down over his hands. The fabric swallowed the worst of the evidence, the color of purple bite marks, the fingerprint bruises still fading on his hips, the faint red welts across his lower back. He kept his head slightly bowed, eyes on the pavement or the grass, speaking only when spoken to, quiet, invisible. Exactly as Kai preferred, Kai circulated with practiced ease handshakes, small talk about the new fence he'd installed, a beer in hand he barely sipped, but his gaze never strayed far from Elias. Every time Elias moved even to step aside for a child chasing a ball, Kai tracked him like prey that might bolt. They ended up near the lemonade stand a teenage girl had set up on her parents' lawn. A young dad, mid-30s dad, bod soft around the middle, easy smile, polo shirt tucked into khakis, manned the table beside his daughter. He handed Elias a plastic cup when Elias approached. Here you go, the man said, voice warm. You look like you could use something cold. Elias accepted the cup with a murmured thank you, fingers brushing the man's knuckles for the briefest second, unintentional, unavoidable. The dad's smile widened. Quiet grace, he said, almost to himself. That's rare these days. You carry yourself like someone who listens more than he speaks. Elias froze, eyes flicking up for half a heartbeat, then dropping again. He stepped back, cup clutched to his chest. Kai saw it all from 10 feet away, the easy smile, the lingering brush of knuckles. The compliment spoken soft and sincere. Red flooded his vision. He crossed the lawn in 3 long strides, his hand clamped around Elias's elbow hard enough to make Elias gasp, and yanked him backward against his chest. Excuse us, Kai said to the dad, voice flat, lethal. The man's smile faltered. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Kai hauled Elias toward their house fast, unyielding. Elias stumbled once. Kai's grip tightened, fresh bruise blooming instantly under his fingers. The front door slammed behind them. Inside the foyer, Kai spun Elias around and shoved him against the wall, shoulder blades hitting plaster, breath knocked out in a soft huff. Flirting, Kai snarled, "In my fucking yard." Elias shook his head frantically. "He was just polite, I swear." He handed me lemonade, Kai's fist cocked back, knuckles still faintly scarred from the alley weeks earlier. Elias flinched, eyes squeezing shut. The punch never landed. Kai's hand trembled in midair, then dropped. Instead, he dropped to his knees. Elias's eyes flew open. Kai shoved the hoodie up rough, impatient, exposing the pale stomach still mottled with fading bruises from their last night together. He pressed his mouth to the lowest one, hot, open-mouthed, sucking hard enough to darken the mark anew. Elias gasped, back arching off the wall. Kai's hands pinned Elias's thighs apart, fingers digging into soft flesh, spreading him wide. He bit down on the tender skin just above the waistband of the sweats, another bruise forming under his teeth, then dragged the fabric down just enough to expose Elias's cock. He took him in one deep swallow. Elias keened, high, broken hands flying to Kai's hair, gripping tight. Kai sucked hard, cheeks hollowing, tongue working the underside in relentless strokes. One hand stayed clamped on Elias's thigh, the other reached up to pinch a nipple through the hoodie, twisting until Elias sobbed. "Say it." Kai growled around him, vibrations tearing through Elias's cock. "I say you're mine." Elias's hips jerked forward. "Yours, Kai, yours." Kai pulled off just long enough to growl, louder. "Yours." Kai took him again, deeper, rougher, until Elias shattered. He came down Kai's throat with a keening cry, body convulsing, knees buckling. Kai swallowed every pulse, throat working, eyes locked upward on Elias's wrecked face. When Elias sagged, spent, trembling, Kai rose slowly, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, eyes stormy. He leaned in close, lips brushing Elias's ear. "Don't make me remind you again." Elias nodded, small, frantic tears clinging to his lashes. Kai straightened his hoodie with careful hands, zipping it higher, smoothing the fabric over the fresh marks. Then he opened the front door. "Back to the party," he said quietly, a smile, "Be good." Elias followed him out, limping slightly, cheeks flushed, the taste of Kai still on his tongue. Outside, the music played on, children laughed, neighbors chatted. No one noticed the way Kai's arms stayed locked around Elias's waist the rest of the afternoon, like a noose disguised as affection. Or the way Elias never looked at anyone else again, not even once. Chapter 18, Notes, Misunderstandings, and Escalation. The notes started small, tiny folded squares of paper, torn from the back of a grocery list, edges uneven because Elias never used scissors for anything personal. He left them in places Kai would find them without looking too hard, under the handle of his coffee mug, tucked inside the breast pocket of a freshly ironed shirt, slipped beneath the keys on the hall table. The first one read, "Dinner's ready, salmon like last week, I missed you today." Kai found it after a long day, unfolded it with one thumb while loosening his tie. He stared at the neat handwriting for 3 full seconds, longer than he ever looked at anything Elias wrote, then folded it again and slipped it into his wallet. He didn't say anything that night. Elias didn't ask. The second note appeared 2 days later. "Laundry's done. Your blue shirt is pressed. I missed you today." Kai read it while Elias was still in the laundry room, humming faintly under his breath, the first sound of warmth in months. Kai's thumb traced the last 4 words. He crumpled the paper in his fist, then smoothed it out again before Elias could see. The third, "The coffee's fresh, black, 2 sugars. I missed you today." This one Kai found during a conference call in the study. He was on mute, half listening to some junior associate drone about quarterly projections when he noticed the small white square under his mouse pad. He unfolded it one-handed. "I missed you today." Something hot and ugly twisted in his chest. At that exact moment, the landline rang in the kitchen, Elias answering it because Kai had never changed the rule about supervised calls. Kai heard Elias's voice, soft, surprised, then warmer than it had been in years. "Yes, hi, Cousin Maya, I'm okay, really. Kai's chair scraped back. He strode into the kitchen. Elias stood with the receiver pressed to his ear, smiling just a small, genuine curve of lips as he listened to whatever the distant relative was saying. The voice on the other end was female, affectionate, laughing softly. Kai snatched the phone from Elias's hand mid-sentence. "Mishearing from you, Elias. You should visit." Kai pressed the receiver to his own ear long enough to hear the warmth in the woman's voice, then slammed it back into the cradle so hard the bell inside chimed once. Elias flinched. Kai turned on him. What the fuck was that? Elias's smile vanished. "It was just my cousin. She calls sometimes, smiling like that, laughing like that." Kai stepped closer. "You think I don't hear it? You think I don't see you playing house with your little notes? I missed you today." Pathetic, Elias's eyes widened. "I wasn't whoring for pity," Kai snarled. "That's what this is. You leave your sad little love letters. You giggle on the phone with family like some neglected housewife, hoping I'll feel sorry for you, hoping I'll soften." The note from the study was still clenched in Kai's fist. He held it up, crumpled, ink smudged from his palm, then crushed it tighter. "I'm not your fucking savior, Elias." Elias took a step back, hit the counter. "I didn't mean." Kai lunged. He slammed Elias against the wall, back hitting plaster, breath punched out of him. Kai's forearm pressed across Elias's throat, not choking, just pinning, while his free hand yanked at his own belt. The buckle clinked open, leather sliding free with a soft hiss. Elias's eyes filled with tears, sudden, hot. "Kai, shut up." Kai's hand tightened on the belt, ready to loop it, ready to strike. Then Elias shoved. It wasn't hard, it wasn't practiced, just desperate, both palms flat against Kai's chest, pushing with everything he had left. Kai staggered back one step, more from surprise than force. Elias's voice broke open raw, sobbing. "I just wanted you to see me." The words tore out of him like something long buried finally clawing free. "I wanted you to look at me. Not the chores, not the house, not the fucking ring. Just me, for once, just once." Tears streamed down his face, now silent at first, then loud, ugly sobs that shook his whole body. He shoved again, weak, trembling, then collapsed forward against Kai's chest, fists curling into Kai's shirt. Kai froze. The belt slipped from his fingers, hit the floor with a dull slap. For one heartbeat neither moved. Then Kai's hands shot up, not to strike, but to grab. He fisted Elias's hair, yanked his head back, and kissed him. Fierce, punishing, teeth clashing. Elias sobbed into his mouth, still pushing weakly at his chest even as his hips rolled forward, seeking. Kai spun him, slammed him face, first against the wall again. Belt forgotten, he tore Elias's sweats down just enough, shoved his own trousers open. No prep, no gentleness. He thrust in hard, deep, brutal. Elias's cry muffled against plaster. Kai fucked the defiance out of him. Slaps open palm to ass, to thigh sharp enough to sting, but not to bruise fresh. Thrusts punishing, hips snapping forward until Elias's knees buckled. Elias fought back at first, elbows jabbing, nails raking down Kai's forearms, then his back when Kai hauled him closer, bloody trails left in red lines across skin. Kai growled, low, feral, biting Elias's shoulder hard enough to reopen an old mark. Elias arched, sobbed Kai's name again, not in pleasure, not in surrender, but in raw, hating need. They collapsed together, Kai still buried deep, Elias's back to his chest, legs tangled on the kitchen floor, breaths synced in ragged, furious harmony. Elias's nails still dug into Kai's shoulders, Kai's arms locked around Elias like he might disappear if he let go. They hated each other in that moment, truly, bone deep, hated the need, hated the cage, hated the way their bodies still fit together like they were made for this violence. And yet neither moved to separate. Kai pressed his forehead to the back of Elias's neck, sweat, tears, blood mingling. Elias whispered, voice wrecked, barely audible, I hate you. Kai's arms tightened, I know. A long, shuddering breath, but I can't stop. A silence fell again, different this time, not cold, not empty, charged, bloody, and inescapable. Chapter 19. The escape. The night began like too many others. Kai came home late after 2, shirt half, untucked, breath heavy with whiskey and the faint perfume of whatever bar he'd chosen to drown the day in. Elias had waited up in the kitchen, dinner long cold on the counter, the house silent except for the low tick of the clock. He hadn't eaten. He rarely did when Kai drank. Kai found him there standing at the sink, washing the same glass over and over, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the thin white shirt still clinging from earlier chores. The sight of Elias quiet, waiting, beautiful in that fragile way, ignited something ugly in Kai's chest. "You smiled at the mailman today." Elias turned slowly. "I said thank you for the package, that's all." Kai's eyes narrowed, paranoid, glassy. "You smiled. I saw it from the porch." Elias set the glass down. "I didn't mean." Kai crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed Elias by the wrist hard enough to make bone grind, and dragged him upstairs without another word. In the master bedroom, Kai shoved Elias toward the bed. Elias stumbled, caught himself on the mattress. Kai yanked his tie loose black silk, still warm from his neck, and looped it around Elias's wrists before Elias could react. He pulled Elias's arms up, knotted the tie tight to the headboard slats. Elias tested the binding once, silk bit into skin, unyielding. Kai stripped him methodically, shirt torn open, buttons scattering, sweats shoved down and kicked aside. Elias was naked in seconds, wrists bound overhead, body stretched taut. Kai shed his own clothes faster. Trousers open, belt clinking to the floor. He didn't speak. He simply climbed over Elias, shoved his thighs apart, and thrust in hard, dry enough to burn. Elias arched, sharp cry torn from his throat, body clenching around the intrusion. Kai didn't pause. He fucked him relentlessly, deep, punishing strokes that rocked the headboard against the wall, frame creaking in protest, hours blurred. Kai took him from behind, first Elias's face pressed to the pillow, wrists straining against silk, then flipped him, pinned his bound hands higher, drove back in face to face. Bites reopened old marks on throat and shoulders, nails dragged bloody furrows down Kai's back when Elias couldn't hold still. Kai slapped open palm to thigh, to cheek, sharp enough to sting, never enough to knock unconscious. Elias sobbed, overstimulated, raw, body betraying him again and again with unwanted orgasms that left him shaking, leaking, pleading. "Please, Kai, mercy. I can't." Kai snarled against his ear. "You can, you will." He came with a guttural groan spilling deep, hips grinding in slow circles to force every drop inside, then collapsed atop Elias, dead weight pinning him to the mattress. The tie stayed knotted tight. Kai passed out almost instantly, drunk, spent, snoring softly against Elias's neck. Elias lay awake. Hours crawled by. The room darkened as streetlights outside flickered off one by one. His wrists burned. Silk had rubbed skin raw, blood seeping into the fabric. Cum leaked slowly down his thighs, cooling on sheets already damp with sweat and tears. Every breath hurt ribs bruised from earlier slaps, throat raw from cries. His body ached in places he couldn't name. He stared at the ceiling, and something inside him finally broke. Not with violence, not with sobs, but with quiet, absolute clarity. Freedom or death trying. He waited until Kai's breathing deepened into the heavy rhythm of true sleep. Then slowly, carefully, he flexed his wrists. The tie had loosened just enough during the night. Sweat, blood, movement. Elias twisted one hand, ignoring the fire in his skin, until fingers slipped free. The other followed. He didn't cry out when circulation returned in painful pins and needles. He slid out from under Kai, slow, silent. Kai only grunted once and rolled onto his stomach, still asleep. Elias dressed in the dark. Jeans, hoodie, sneakers from the back of the closet. He moved like a ghost through the house he'd cleaned for years, down the stairs, past the kitchen where he'd left so many notes, to the small cabinet under the stairs where he'd hidden the emergency cash from his trust fund for 3 years, $2,000 in small bills, rubber-banded, untouched. He took it all, In the master bedroom again, he stood over the bed for a long moment. Kai sprawled, peaceful in sleep, the man who had owned him in every way that mattered. Elias leaned down. He placed a small folded note on the pillow where his head had been. The handwriting was the same neat script Kai knew so well. I'm nothing without you, but I can't be nothing anymore. Forgive me. He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. Elias took the keys to the old family sedan from the hook by the door, the car Kai never drove, the one that still smelled faintly of Marian's lavender. He slipped outside into the pre-dawn chill. The engine turned over quietly. He backed out of the driveway without lights, coasted half a block before turning them on. He drove to the bus station on the edge of town, parked in the long-term lot, left the keys under the mat, bought a one-way ticket to the city, cash, no questions, with the first 100 from the bundle. The bus was half empty, commuters dozing, a few students with headphones, a tired mother with a sleeping toddler. Elias took a window seat near the back, pulled the hoodie up over his head, curled small against the glass. As the bus pulled away from the station, streetlights sliding past, then highway signs, then the open dark, he felt the house recede behind him like a weight finally lifting, not gone, never gone, but distant. For the first time in years, he breathed without permission. He vanished into the city crowds at dawn, small, pale, anonymous, carrying nothing but cash, the clothes on his back, and the raw ache of everything he'd left behind. And somewhere in the Maplewood house, Kai would wake to cold sheets, a crumpled note, and silence deeper than any he'd ever forced. The cage was empty, and the bird had flown. Chapter 20. The hunt. Kai woke to cold sheets and silence. The room was grey with early light filtering through half-closed blinds. He reached instinctively across the bed, habit now, muscle memory, and found nothing, no warmth. No body curled small against his side, no soft breathing to match his own. He sat up slowly. The pillow on Elias's side still held the faint indentation of his head. A small folded square of paper rested exactly where Elias's cheek had been. Kai stared at it for a long second, unmoving, unblinking before he picked it up. The handwriting was the same neat script he knew too well. I'm nothing without you, but I can't be nothing anymore. Forgive me. No signature. He read it twice, then the paper crumpled in his fist. Panic hit first, visceral, choking, like a hand around his throat. His heart slammed against ribs so hard it hurt. He tore the sheets back as though Elias might still be hidden beneath them. Nothing. The bed was empty, cold. Rage followed, black, boiling, immediate. He roared Elias's name once, raw, animal, then surged out of bed, naked, barefoot. He tore through the bedroom closet, doors yanked open, drawers ripped out, clothes spilling across the floor. Nothing. No note, no sign, no Elias. Downstairs he went feral. He overturned the kitchen table, plates shattering, coffee mug exploding against tile, cabinets thrown open, pots clanging to the floor, the study, papers scattered, laptop smashed against the wall, the living room cushions gutted, bookshelves toppled. He ripped cushions apart with his bare hands, looking for what? A clue, a body, anything, nothing. By the time the destruction slowed, the house looked like a war zone. Kai stood in the wreckage, chest heaving, knuckles bleeding from broken glass, breath ragged, and felt the rage drain away like blood from a wound. Emptiness rushed in to replace it, cold, absolute, hollow. He sank to his knees in the middle of the foyer, surrounded by shattered porcelain, torn fabric, the faint smell of Elias's perfume still lingering on the air, and pressed the crumpled note to his forehead. He didn't cry. He simply stopped breathing for a long moment. Then he stood. He called in every favor he had, private investigators, 3 of them, the best money could buy, old family contacts, people who owed Richard and Marian more than they owed Kai, but who feared him now, former classmates who worked security, a retired cop who'd once looked the other way on Kai's college excesses. He hunted, days blurred into nightmare. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, Coffee turned to whiskey, whiskey to black coffee again. His eyes burned red, rimmed, cheeks hollowed. He drove the streets of the city at all hours, slow, predatory, flashing Elias's photo to strangers on sidewalks, at bus stops, in gas stations. "Have you seen my husband?" The word stuck in his throat every time. Foreign, true, desperate. Most people flinched from his feral gaze, his bloodshot eyes, the tremor in his hands. Some shook their heads. A few remembered seeing someone small and pale matching the description. Downtown, maybe, near the industrial edge. But no one knew where he'd gone. Day 7. Kai hadn't slept in 48 hours. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other clutching Elias's photo so hard the edges were creased and sweat-stained. Rain hammered the windshield, cold, relentless, turning the city into smeared neon and shadow. He pulled into the parking lot of a dingy motel on the far edge of the city, faded sign flickering, vacancy, windows glowing sickly yellow. Something made him stop, instinct, desperation, he didn't know. Across the street was a 24-hour diner, chrome and glass neon sign buzzing, open. Through the rain, streaked windows he saw Elias, hollow-cheeked, hair tied back, apron stained, eyes dull as he poured coffee for a table of leering truckers' men who watched his ass when he turned, who made crude jokes he pretended not to hear. Elias moved like a ghost, mechanical, invisible, pouring refills with hands that shook only when no one was looking. Kai's breath stopped. He was out of the car before he registered moving, or slamming, rain soaking through his shirt in seconds. He crossed the street at a run, shoved the diner door open so hard the bell jangled violently. The lunch rush fell silent, every head turned. Elias froze behind the counter, coffee pot in hand, saucer slipping from the other. It shattered on the tile with a sharp crack. Kai, a whisper. Terror and longing twisted together. Kai vaulted the counter in one movement, ignoring the manager's sputtered protest, the clatter of dropped forks, crossed the space in 3 strides, and crushed Elias against his chest, arms like vices, face buried in damp hair. Inhaling the faint trace of that forbidden perfume still clinging beneath the smell of grease and coffee. "You left," Kai growled, voice breaking, raw. "Thinking I wouldn't burn the world to get you back." Elias went rigid, then melted, small and trembling, hands fisting Kai's wet shirt. Sobs tore out of him, quiet at first, then loud, wrenching. I'm sorry, I thought." Kai didn't let him finish. He dragged him out, through the diner, past staring faces, into the rain, slick parking lot, shoved him into the passenger seat of the Porsche, slid behind the wheel. Started the engine. The drive home was a storm. Rain hammered the roof. Windshield wipers slashed back and forth. Kai's knuckles were white on the wheel, still bleeding from old cuts, new ones opening where nails dug into palms. Elias curled small in the seat, knees to chest, sobbing apologies that dissolved into hiccuping breaths. "I thought you'd be free," Elias whispered once, without the burden. Kai's jaw clenched so hard something cracked. "Shut up." Elias obeyed. They reached Maplewood Lane in silence except for the rain and Elias's quiet, broken crying. Kai pulled into the driveway, killed the engine. He sat there for a long minute, rain drumming on the roof, then turned to Elias. Elias looked at him, eyes red, face streaked with tears and rain, hollowed by days of hunger and double shifts. Kai reached across the console, not to strike, to cup Elias's face gentle, trembling. "You're coming inside," he said, voice hoarse, cracked, "and you're never leaving again." Elias nodded small, defeated, relieved. Kai got out first, walked around, opened Elias's door, pulled him into his arms, bridal carry, like the wedding night, but different now. Elias didn't struggle. He buried his face in Kai's neck and cried harder. Kai carried him through the rain, up the porch steps, across the threshold. The door closed behind them, soft this time. The cage rebuilt itself in hours, but something inside it had changed forever. Chapter 21. Rebuilt cage and true reversal. The front door closed behind them with a soft, final click. Kai didn't slam it this time. He carried Elias inside, still bridle, style rein, soaked clothes clinging to both of them, and kicked the door shut with his heel. Elias's arms stayed looped around Kai's neck, face buried against his throat, small shudders running through him every few breaths. Kai didn't speak. He carried him straight upstairs, past the wreckage of the foyer he'd torn apart during the hunt, past the bedroom where the note still lay crumpled on the pillow. In the master bathroom, Kai set Elias down on the edge of the tub, gentle, almost careful. Elias swayed once. Kai steadied him with hands on his shoulders. Stay. Elias nodded small, numb. Kai turned on the shower, warm, not scalding, then stripped Elias slowly. Hoodie peeled away, jeans unbuttoned and slid down trembling legs, underwear tugged free, every movement deliberate. No tearing, no violence. When Elias was naked, Kai guided him under the spray. He stepped in behind him, still clothed, shoes and all, clothes darkening with water. He washed Elias himself, shampoo lathered into dark hair, fingers massaging scalp with careful pressure. Soap sudsed over shoulders, down arms, tracing every bruise, every fading bite mark, every scar Kai himself had left over years. He knelt, water pounding his back, and kissed each mark as he cleaned it, soft, reverent presses of lips to purple fingerprints on hips, to red welts on ribs, to the raw circles around wrists from the silk tie. Never again, Kai whispered against a particularly dark bruise on Elias's collarbone. And never again. Elias trembled, tears mixing with shower water, but didn't speak. Kai dried him with the largest towel, wrapped him in it like something fragile, then carried him to the bed, fresh sheets already changed while Elias was gone, as though Kai had prepared for this moment days ago. He laid Elias down, stripped himself wet clothes discarded in a heap, and slid into bed beside him. No words. He pulled Elias atop him, slow, careful, until Elias straddled his hips, knees bracketing Kai's waist. Kai's hands settled on Elias's thighs, thumbs tracing old bruises, not pressing, just feeling. Eyes locked. Kai entered him slow, reverent, inch by inch, watching Elias's face the entire time. Elias's breath hitched, still sore, still sensitive, but he sank down willingly, taking all of him. Kai's hands slid to Elias's waist, guiding, not forcing, and they moved together, deep, rolling thrusts, eyes never breaking contact, no slaps, no growls. Just slow, claiming rhythm, bodies sinking, breaths mingling, until Elias shattered first back, bowing, soft cry tearing from his throat, release spilling between them untouched. Kai followed seconds later, spilling deep with a low, broken groan, hips grinding in slow circles to push it deeper. They stayed like that. Elias collapsed forward onto Kai's chest, Kai's arms locking around him like iron bands. Whispers began then, soft, almost inaudible at first. You're everything. A kiss to Elias's temple, my everything. Another to the corner of his eye, tasting salt. The reversal settled in quiet, seismic shifts. Locks were changed the next morning, new deadbolts, keypad entry, Elias's fingerprint programmed beside Kai's. Elias's old phone was replaced with one Kai had already set up, location tracking enabled, every app monitored, no social media, no messages without approval. Kai shadowed him not cruelly, but constantly. When Elias moved to the kitchen, Kai followed. When he folded laundry, Kai leaned in the doorway and watched. When Elias read in the living room, Kai sat close enough that their thighs touched, but he didn't strike, he clung. Gifts appeared small, deliberate. Silk ties in the dresser drawer, not for binding anymore, but for blindfolds during slow, teasing nights when Kai wanted Elias to feel every touch without sight. A new perfume, darker, richer, one Kai chose himself and sprayed on Elias's throat before they left the house. A slim gold chain with a small pendant engraved with a single initial, K. Date nights resumed at the same upscale restaurant, velvet booths, candlelight, the same corner table. Kai's hand stayed possessive on Elias's thigh under the table, thumb tracing slow circles, voice low and growling against his ear, mine. Jealousy remained a lethal undercurrent. When paranoia spiked Elias mentioning a new hobby class at the community center, pottery, just something to do, Kai's eyes darkened. Too many eyes on you. The fight was short, raised voices, Elias's quiet insistence, Kai's fist clenched. Then Kai pulled Elias into his lap mid-argument sentence silenced protests with deep, claiming kisses until truth spilled. I just want to feel useful, Elias whispered against his mouth. You are, Kai answered, voice rough to me, only to me. The fight dissolved into make-up sex, slow, bruising when Kai's jealousy flared, but always ending with Elias curled against Kai's chest, Kai's fingers carding through his hair, murmuring apologies into his scalp. Kai learned to listen. He learned to pull Elias into his lap when voices rose, silencing arguments with kisses until the real words came out. He learned to ask instead of assume. He learned that Elias's quiet, I missed you, wasn't manipulation, it was truth. And Elias learned to speak it again without notes, without fear. They rebuilt the cage together, stronger bars, clearer rules, but the door, though locked, now had a key both of them held, and neither wanted to turn it. Years later, the house on Maplewood Lane would still smell faintly of lemon polish and musk, but the silence would be different, not hollow, full, dark, theirs. Chapter 22. Years later, the garden. 17 years had passed since the night Elias vanished into the city crowds, and Kai hunted him down like a man possessed. Time had not softened the edges of what they were, only deepened them, carved them deeper into each other's bones. Kai was 38 now, taller, broader across the shoulders, silver threading through the dark hair at his temples. The sharp, feral hunger in his eyes had settled into something steadier, more dangerous because it was patient. He still wore black most days, tailored shirts, dark jeans, but the sleeves were often rolled to his forearms, revealing the faint white scars Elias's nails had left during their worst nights, scars he never covered. Elias was 29. He had filled out, still slim, still delicate in the wrists and ankles, but rounder now with quiet, hard, one happiness. The hollows in his cheeks were gone. His hips carried soft curves Kai's hands had learned by heart. His hair had grown longer. He wore it loose most days, dark waves brushing his shoulders, and his eyes, once flat and cold, now held a steady, luminous warmth when they looked at Kai. The platinum band from their cold wedding had been replaced years ago with matching gold rings, simple, heavy, worn religiously on the fourth finger of each left hand. Elias never took his off, neither did Kai. The garden behind the Maplewood house had once been neglected, overgrown weeds, cracked stone paths, a rusted swing frame half buried in ivy. Kai had tended it himself, no landscapers, no hired hands. He had dug the beds with his own hands, planted the roses one by one, deep crimson hybrids that bloomed blood, red every summer, built the trellis from reclaimed oak, hung the wide wooden swing from sturdy chains. The garden smelled of earth and roses and the faint musk of Elias's skin after a long afternoon in the sun. They stood there now, late dusk, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds. Elias leaned back into Kai's chest head, resting against his shoulder, one of Kai's arms wrapped low and possessive around his waist, the other hand splayed over Elias's softly rounded stomach. The gold bands caught the last light. Elias wore loose linen trousers and a thin cotton shirt unbuttoned halfway. Kai's black shirt was open at the throat, sleeves rolled as always. Elias tilted his head back, lips brushing the underside of Kai's jaw. Still hate me, he teased, voice soft, playful, the same words he'd whispered that first raw night years ago. Kai's teeth grazed Elias's earlobe, gentle nip, then a slow suck that made Elias's breath hitch. I hate how you own me, Kai murmured, voice gravel, rough, hand sliding lower until his palm cupped Elias possessively through the linen, every fucking breath. Elias laughed quiet, breathless, and Kai spun him in one fluid motion. He pressed Elias back against the garden wall. Warm brick, still holding the day's heat, hiked Elias's leg up around his hip with a firm grip under the thigh. Elias's arms looped around Kai's neck. Their mouths met in a slow, claiming kiss. Deep, unhurried, tongues sliding together like they had all the time in the world. Kai unbuttoned Elias's trousers with practiced ease, pushed them down just enough, freed himself from his own jeans. He entered slow, careful, reverent eyes locked on Elias's the entire way in. Elias's head fell back against the brick, lips parting on a soft moan. Kai rocked into him, deep, rolling thrusts that dragged against every sensitive place, hand braced beside Elias's head, the other gripping his thigh to keep him open. No rush, no violence, just claiming, slow, deliberate, eternal. Elias's moans were the only sound in the dusk, soft, broken, rising with every deep stroke. His nails dug into Kai's shoulders through the shirt, leaving faint crescents, not blood this time. Kai kissed his throat open, mouthed reverent, then his jaw, then his mouth again, swallowing every sound. They came together, Elias first, shuddering, crying Kai's name in a quiet, shattered whisper. Kai following with a low groan, spilling deep, hips grinding in slow circles to push it deeper. They stayed like that, bodies locked, breaths sinking, foreheads pressed together, until the last light bled out of the sky and the garden filled with the scent of roses and sex. Kai eased Elias's leg down, fixed their clothes with careful hands, then pulled him close again, arms wrapped around him from behind, chin resting on Elias's shoulder. Happy? Kai asked, voice rough but soft in a way it had never been before. Elias turned his head, kissed the corner of Kai's mouth. Intensely, he whispered, eternally, darkly ours. Kai's arms tightened. Damn right. They stood there until the stars came out, two bodies pressed together in the garden Kai had built with his own hands, gold rings glinting in the moonlight, the swing creaking faintly in the breeze behind them. Happy, yes. Intensely, eternally, darkly theirs.
That's all for today on Cherry Blossom BL Story. Thank you for watching. What do you think about this chapter? Did you like it? Or do you think something unexpected is coming? Comment your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories.